SW and co-founder of KCIA. She is a co-founder of Kansas City Infertility Awareness Foundation and a licensed clinical social worker, and she is going to discuss how to survive with infertility.
That's impressive.
Good morning again. I did not try out the mouse beforehand, so first thing. Hey Megan, can you pull up my PowerPoint? Sorry. This could just be a really fun.
I sing, but I don't think anyone wants to hear that. Or tell them.
There it is. I have this. That can work. And you can slideshow. But I'm not going to try to figure out how to go back to the last slide. So, surviving infertility is what I'm going to talk about today. I wish I had all the answers, but my disclosure up front is that obviously I don't. So we're going to start out with a little laughter since everybody says it's the best medicine. I don't know if you guys have checked out this website, 999 Reasons to Laugh at Infertility. It really is a fun place to go if you're having a bad day or if you just want somebody else to share the absurdity of some of the things that we do on this journey. So the things I'm going to talk about, some of them came from this website, the humorous parts at least, and then some of them are just things that I have noticed or we have talked about in our support group along the way. See if you've had any of these same thoughts go through your head, or if there's something that you experience in the future. Have you ever been in a situation where everybody is sitting around at some gathering that you've gone to? Everybody's talking, everybody's laughing, everybody's drinking soda or tea and having dessert, and everybody's having a good time. Except you, because your cousin showed up today wearing a baggy sweatshirt. And as you're sitting there, all that's going through your mind is, when's she going to announce that she's pregnant? Is she pregnant? She's not drinking tea, she's drinking water. She's probably avoiding caffeine. Everybody keeps talking, and there's just like a blank stare on your face because you're just trying to prepare yourself for this to happen. Anybody? I see a few nods. People have been there. Yes. Until the end of the night, you don't hear a word anybody says. But when you see your cousin go pick up a big glass of red wine, you just feel this relaxation come all over you because another pregnancy announcement has been averted. Having become a twin spy, this is a bad one for me. If you're walking down the street, you see somebody pushing a stroller with twins, most people would just say, oh, twins, how cute. Not me. I immediately start thinking, she must have done fertility treatments. Are they identical? No, it's a boy and a girl. Yeah, definitely fertility treatments. Even my mom thinks this way. If somebody calls us and tells us their family member's pregnant with twins and we don't know that they're going for infertility, we just assume they are. We don't stop and think that fraternal twins really do happen in a natural way, but somewhere along the line we forgot that. Do you remember the days that you used to use birth control to prevent pregnancy? Or when someone could announce a pregnancy and you didn't feel like crying? Has your topics of conversation changed to sperm count, the exact motility, ovulation, day 21, and when you have these discussions with other people, they look at you blankly like, why are you telling me this? But to you, you just use those things normally now. Do you ever Google your fake pregnancy symptoms? I had a twitch you pregnant. I got told, and somewhere I read that if you're stuffy, you may be pregnant. Yeah. And this is one of my favorites that we always talk about in the support group. Do you ever completely stop drinking caffeine or alcohol for 2 weeks, but you know on that day that your period arrives, you already know which alcoholic drink you're going to go get? This all becomes normal to us, and it really is funny and absurd. I know infertility is hard, but we do have to stop and look at it and just kind of laugh along the way. Who am I and why do I have the microphone? Like she said, I'm a clinical social worker. Having my clinical license means that I am qualified to practice private therapy. I began my social work career at Truman Medical Center. I was there for 7 years, and during that time, my specialty became traumatic brain injury and spinal cord injury. So I was working with patients who were in some sort of major medical crisis. I left Truman to go work with end-stage renal disease patients, completely different life-changing event that they're experiencing, but still giving mental health services to patients going through a big crisis. My personal story kind of explains a bit more about why I'm here today. My husband and I began trying to start a family in 2007. After a year of trying on our own, we sought medical help. We had no reason to believe there'd be anything wrong. Medical testing did reveal that I have polycystic ovarian syndrome and I have a blocked tube. Jason checked out okay, but his results didn't give him rock star status either. Over the next 2 years, we tried inseminations. He's ducking his head back there. We tried inseminations with BB on oral and injectable medications, plenty of eggs, plenty of sperm, no baby. We came to the point where IVF was the next stop. In early 2010, we chose instead to pursue adoption. We finished our home study in October of 2010, and in November of 2010, we were chosen to adopt a baby girl through a private situation. There are too many details for me to share in this short time about how that situation happened, but we cared for her in the NICU for 2 weeks, and fell completely in love, brought her home for 10 days, and the birth father changed his mind. That experience was the absolute worst part of our infertility journey. Like I said, crazy situation. No adoption agency would let you get into that situation. We were in a crazy situation, so don't let that scare you away from adoption. That kind of grief that happened on that day, I didn't even know that grief existed. But that's not the end of our story. In April of 2011, we received a phone call from a mutual friend saying that they had a birth mother that wanted to talk to us. She called us, we had dinner, and she chose us to be the parents of her baby. We were able to go to all doctor's appointments with her. We were there for the ultrasound to find out we were having a son. And in June of last year, he was born, and we got to bring him straight home from the hospital. So now that brings all 4 of us, who this time last year, only one of us had a baby on the horizon, and in a year, so much can change. My personal journey joined with my professional background to allow me to be a founder of Kansas City Infertility Awareness, and to start being able to provide therapy to people going through this journey also. Looking back, I can be thankful for everything that's happened along the way. I've gotten to meet so many amazing people. I've gotten to see so many miracles actually happen. And now that I have my son, I will go through it all again to get him in my arms. Today, I'm going to try to provide some clues about things that may lessen your burden and help you get through this journey a little bit better. And I'm kind of blunt, so just bear with me. Hopefully, I won't embarrass anybody else. These are a few facts. In my opinion, they're facts. Infertility is not your fault, a curse, or any other BS. Don't let anybody else tell you their opinion on why you're infertile. If only good, morally upstanding people had kids, we wouldn't have so many kids in the foster care system. And I haven't found anywhere in the Bible either, because this is something people love to say, just get right with God, you'll get a baby. I haven't found anything in the Bible that says that that's the truth either, so I don't quite buy into that. Also, just as I suggest, don't listen to other people's opinions. Try to be kind to yourself. I was a person who would always sit around and listen to success stories, and in the back of my head, well, it's nice that they had success that way, but I'm not ever going to have success. That would just go through my head. And so if you ever struggle with thoughts like that, don't let them take over. Don't let them go there. Try to take those thoughts captive and keep them where they belong, which is not the truth. Let's see. Depending on who you talk to, infertility affects 1 in 8 or 1 in 6 couples, so there's a lot of us going through this. There's not just a couple people out there, so you're definitely not alone. There is a mind-body connection. People are studying how receiving treatment for depression and anxiety during an IVF cycle affects outcomes, and they are finding that success rates are higher for people who are getting professional treatment for depression and anxiety as opposed to trying to deal with it alone. One of the books that I recommend is one of our giveaways today. If you're interested in learning more about how the mind and body connect, it's On Fertile Ground by Helen Adrian, and there's a copy on the back table. And then infertility does not define who you are. It takes over every area of your life some days. Some days you're even at work and you can't concentrate on any other thoughts about how are you going to have a baby. And I just want you to remember that you're experiencing infertility, and it is all-consuming, but it is not who you are. And we're going to talk about some ways to manage infertility. When the stork doesn't just show up at your house with a baby, life can become stressful. On the stress scale that many of us professionals use to rate stressful life events like marriage, divorce, loss of a family member, buying a house, infertility rates right up there with having a terminal illness. When we're in pain, sometimes all we want to do, did I lose my place? Yes, I did. Okay. When we're in pain, sometimes all we want to do is just sit in our house and kind of dwell on what we're going through and what we're doing. And I'm going to talk about some other ways to protect yourself. There we go. Okay, you're your first concern, and you've got to keep it that way. I don't want you guys to go through this alone. And one of the things I hope that everybody here in this room can do is build a support system of some sort. You know, 50 years ago, there weren't that many options to even treat infertility, and if couples didn't have children, they just didn't have children. Nobody really talked about it. People were probably just starting to look into exact reasons why, but these days there's so many options, and I'm so thankful for that, but there's also a lot of options for support. If you're not interested in talking to your social system about the support and what you're going through, then I would suggest maybe looking online. There's a bunch of support groups that have been developed online, and there are some really good ones. You just have to kind of sort through and see what fits. There also are very good support groups here in Kansas City. Like I said, that's how the four of us for the Kansas City Infertility Awareness founders met. We were like the only time at the beginning there was just the four of us, and we would come in. I could be depressed and upset, and just sitting down with three other women who were going through it, it was so freeing to just be able to talk to them and have somebody else that just gets it. We could walk out like a weight had been lifted off our shoulders. There's a support group sheet in your folder, and if you're interested at all in a support group sponsored by KCIA, you can see me, and we're going to send out an email after the conference too. It just is a good way to kind of get together and get your feelings, and nobody looks at you like you're crazy. Second option might be to see a therapist. And again, meeting with a therapist does not mean that you're crazy either. We're here to provide support and help you work through your feelings to bring about positive change. You may just simply need an unbiased opinion to help you kind of sort through everything on your journey. I always tell people you may have to meet with more than one therapist before you find the one that clicks with you. Don't be afraid to do that. If you walk into an office and you don't feel like you click, try the next person. We can help you work through your feelings and through all the options, but one thing that I don't want a therapist to ever tell you is what step you should take next as their opinion or what doctor you should see. Because just because a doctor and a therapist have a really good relationship doesn't mean that that doctor is going to be the best fit for you. So other suggestions, breathing. When your body gets stressed, you automatically breathe more shallow. It's not good for your body. Just taking deep breaths. You'd be surprised how often we all breathe shallow. Deep breaths can just relax you. Journaling is another good method to get out all your feelings. When those crazy thoughts are keeping you up in the middle of the night, get out some pen and paper and just start writing. Get them out of your head. Because just getting them out of your head can be a way to relax. Physical exercise produces a chemical in your body that is similar to a lot of antidepressants. So exercise really does help. And find what distractions that you can find. Don't let yourself sit in the house and just dwell on what you're going through. Try to get out. This has been a great distraction for us as we go along meeting with other people, and just find something that you can be passionate about, whether it's your pet or other family members, supporting them, just something that can take your mind off of what you're going through. And then also allow yourself to have that cry or mini meltdown. It's going to happen, and when that anger and stress builds up, you've got to let it out, and it's fine to go there and experience that. This is really crazy, but I'm going to share it anyway. My husband and I found that taking eggs into the backyard and throwing them at a tree and watching them explode was a great stress reliever. I promise we're really not crazy. And eggs are cheap, so when you're trying to save money, eggs are cheap. And I'm sure there's something tied, I'm not going to look at it too closely, but I'm sure there's something tied into it being eggs, and you need eggs to make a baby, and all of that. So, we live in the country, so nobody saw us chucking our eggs at the tree. If you live in like an apartment building, I might not go with that. But definitely allow yourself some sort of outlet for stress. If you're building your family as a couple, you have to protect that couple base because you're the basis of your family. There's some things you need to do because infertility comes after your marriage, and if you haven't experienced that, I can almost bet that you will at some point. So these are some things you can do to protect your marriage. One of the discussions you need to have is decide if you're going to tell people what you're going through. Some people prefer to keep quiet about their struggles and others prefer to share. Either option is fine, but that's a very personal decision that you and your partner must have. Nothing is worse than one person keeping it private, which would have been my husband, and then the other person going around and telling everybody, with the mailman even, which would have been me, what we were going through. That can only lead to feelings of betrayal. Have this conversation and stick to it. I kind of go to Jason and readjust the rules. We've been pretty open about everything that we've gone through, but there's been some times we've chosen to keep things private, and during those times I've had to go to him and say, hey listen, I gotta tell somebody because I'm going crazy. And we've always been able to come to an agreement. Another discussion you need to have is what family building options that you're open to. This is also going to be an ongoing discussion. What options will you consider? It's okay to look into more than one thing at a time, and you also have to agree to disagree. If one person wants to start looking into adoption and the other isn't quite there yet, that's okay. However, if you're the one that's not quite there yet, try to keep an open mind and listen to what your partner may be telling you. But both of you have to agree to respect each other's wishes. It's so important to have an infertility-free night, if at all possible. Picking a night during the week where there's no baby talk, there's no treatment talk, there's no adoption talk. It's just you guys finding something to do that's fun and doing it. If you can pick one day of the week, sometimes that can become a habit and it gets a little bit easier. One of our greatest blessings was having couples who have struggled through infertility and adoption share their journeys with us. Most of the time, I wouldn't have guessed that these couples that are 10, 20 years older than us had even struggled to have children. They just looked like a happy family with teenagers. So when they would come to us and share, I could hear their experience and have their support, and I could find myself thinking, oh good, if they made it through it, we will too. So that's something to keep in mind. I mean, there's tons of couples here. I'm sure in your social system there's couples too, you just have to find them. Another one is to splurge. Don't deprive yourself or your marriage. Treatment and adoption are both very expensive ball games. I completely understand that. And if you're like me, you start thinking you must save every single dime and cut out everything. Jason loves to tell the story about how one day he came home with a 99-cent water can to water the flowers that I had planted, and I got mad at him because I didn't want him spending 99 cents on something that we already had. So try not to be that extreme, and thankfully I got out of that stage. You're going to have to cut back, but allow yourself to have some treats. Go on date nights to a nice restaurant, get a massage, go on a vacation, etc. You have to manage your stress, and these things help. The journey to parenthood lasted 4 years for us, and that's way too long to go without a splurge. If you deprive yourself too much, that just leads to bitterness on this journey. Jason and I love to go to St. John in the U.S. Virgin Islands, and while we were waiting to become parents, we still took those trips, and I promise you, we are not having money raining in our backyard. We would stay in more affordable places and travel during certain times of the year, but we went. Those trips were sometimes the only weeks of the year that I would seem normal and feel like life was okay and we weren't completely focused. We could play and laugh and just not concentrate so much on when or how we were going to become parents. We cut back in other ways, but our vacations were important enough that they had to stand. And actually, our last trip as a couple took place just a couple weeks before our failed adoption. We took a long road trip to Colorado, just the two of us. And if we had not had that time of renewal before we went down that road of our failed adoption, I don't know that we would have been able to make it through as good. I've already talked to you about some discussions you need to have, and here's a tip I picked up from Kristen McNacka. She's an author of Love and Infertility. We have some books back there that are hers too. One way to increase communication is to put your needs down on note cards. Once a week, each partner takes a note card and writes down 3 things they need from that partner that week. It could be something really small, like I need you to bring me a glass of wine one day a week, one day that week, or something as big as I need you to go change the oil in my car. But sometimes as partners, we try to guess what the other person needs, and sometimes we don't always guess right. And if you know what each other is expecting that week, then that just helps open the lines of communication. It makes you each feel important in this craziness that can happen. If you're having trouble holding it together as a couple, which like I said, I know happens, I really would suggest you check out Kristen's book because it really has a ton of tips in there. She and her husband went for infertility, and it kind of talks about how they put their professional life with their personal life and found some ways to be successful. Here's some other tips for survival. Educate yourself. We have so little power over anything in this world, but we can control how much we know. You may be afraid to irritate your doctor or adoption professional, but ask every single question you can think of. I would always make a list of questions at home and take them with me to any meeting so I could pull them out and run through them really quick. When you walk into a doctor's office, your nerves automatically bump up, and some of those questions you had just fly out the window. So if you're calm, like 2 days beforehand, you're making your list, then you can take your list in, you're gonna have all your questions, you're gonna walk out with your answers. If you go in with your list of questions and your professional isn't explaining things in a way that you understand, keep asking. Don't let yourself walk away confused. There's never too many questions. I won't let the doctors in the hallway hear me say that. Read books, even read online. Make sure you're looking at a reputable site. Dr. Google can be very dangerous and deceptive. I know that sometimes my doctors would hate it when I would whip out my list of questions and be like, well, online I read. But if you've read online, you're going to be able to ask your doctor, you're going to be able to learn the truth, you're going to open up some questions that you might not have thought about beforehand. But you have to promise that you're not going to get on some message board and let somebody tell you that they know how you should be treating your infertility or what you should be doing for your health. Educate others. If you're comfortable along the way, please do this. If you're tired of hearing, just relax and it will happen. If you provide education to somebody else, maybe you're going to save others down the road from hearing it. There are so many myths about infertility and adoption, and those of us actually experiencing them and researching these topics can combat these myths. If someone refers to my son's parents these days when they actually need to ask about his birth parents, which half the time it's none of their business, whatever they're asking anyway, but instead they call them his parents. I've taken to trying to educate them on positive adoption language and that my husband and I are very much his parents. Change happens in small increments, but having these conversations with people can empower us to make sure we're educating them one person at a time. One of the most important aspects of family building is finding the right professional to work with. This may be a doctor's office, acupuncturist, therapist, adoption agency, and you're going to know the right office for you and what staff you bond with. Just because everyone you work with has gotten pregnant with Dr. X, it doesn't mean that if you walk into that office, that's going to be the right doctor for you. Go somewhere else if you're not comfortable. Let's face it, these people are going to know pretty much everything about you. And if they're going to tell you to go home and have sex on certain nights, or if they're going to come into your home and look at your house to make sure it's home study approved, you need to like them. You don't have to love them, but you need to like them. And sometimes I think that people are going to sing praises of a certain doctor or professional simply because they've had success, and then totally trash other people because they didn't have success with that person. In our journey, I've seen 3 different doctors in the last now 5 years, and I've worked with 2 different adoption agencies. I didn't ever get pregnant, but I can tell you what I do and don't like about each medical office, and my success came through adoption, but I can tell you positive and negatives about each agency too. So try not to get caught up in other people's opinions. And working in the medical field, I know that there's no such thing as a perfect office, even though we'd all like to pretend there is. So be free to find the one that fits you best. Infertility also comes after any spiritual beliefs you may have held. I'm a Christian, and in my second year of infertility, my faith took a huge blow. If you're having any negative thoughts or feelings about spiritual beliefs that you may have held for a long time, please seek answers. Talk to others that share your same faith or beliefs, and let them work through this process of your questioning. Our minds can become these deep, dark places where everything just broods around, and lifelong beliefs, when you're questioning them, can really become stressful. If you can work through them, you're probably going to come out of this with a better understanding of why you believe what you do. Taking a break isn't for everyone, but infertility treatments and adoption can be so exhausting that Jason and I chose to take several breaks along the way. Sometimes you need that break to be able to heal emotionally, physically, and financially. Sometimes taking a break and stepping back in the process can also bring clarity on what you want to do next. I know when all you want to do is build a family and have a baby, you just want to rush through every step as quick as you can. But if you take a break in between, it's going to allow you to kind of have a better picture. I advise everybody to always have a plan B. This strategy helped me survive something every time it didn't work. I would know that a failed treatment or failed adoption wasn't the end of my life, even though it felt like it at the minute. Talk to your partner and outline where you go from here. Even writing it down on paper can bring some clarity. Knowing that you're going into an IVF cycle with a plan B can help keep you calm. Your plan may look like try IVF, and if it fails, we're going to try IVF again. Maybe your plan is going to look like go ahead and go forward with embryo adoption, but go ahead and get some domestic adoption information and to have homes to start looking at in case the embryo adoption doesn't work. Every plan is different, but I do suggest you know where you're going to go next. These are my final thoughts for your journey. Your story is uniquely your own, and your journey is never going to look like anybody else's. We're all going to have our own joys and our own heartbreaks along the way. We're all going to have our own times of bitterness and our own dependence on doctors and other agencies. That's okay. They're ours, and no one, and I mean no one, has the right to judge any of your decisions. We've had people question why on earth we would have chosen to go straight to adoption instead of providing or trying in vitro first. It was the right decision for us, and that's all anybody needs to know. I can't tell you what the future holds for your family, but I do know one thing: you're not going to be in this place forever. Maybe you're going to get pregnant. Maybe you're going to use a donor to achieve pregnancy. Maybe you'll adopt, or maybe you're going to decide that you want to live child-free and go to the beach in Mexico and open a margarita stand. Jason and I discussed that one a time or two, only we were going to go to St. John. I simply don't know. I wish I did. But what I do know is that when you are through with this period of your life and you look back, you don't want to have regrets. You want to have tried everything that you want to try. You don't want to feel like you wasted some of your youth by constantly being sad and stressed. Infertility develops a strength in us like very few things can, and I'm passionate about looking back and being thankful for that strength. I hope today I've been able to give you some tips that will help you take pride in that strength, be thankful for it, and do what you can to take hold of life and live it to the fullest, even while you're surviving